Okay, so it says live YouTube. We're on YouTube. Right, you know what? We're just going to go from right here and I'll edit it. Here we are. Welcome to 5D Chat. I'm Mary Amy, an intuitive wisdom coach and a light worker. I'm all about shifting away darkness, guiding you to light, and cracking open the beautiful glowing light in your heart. On today's show is America Off Course, last words upon passing your eternal message, and tips for stress and growing older. Now, before we get to that, let's present our hosts. Ben?
Yes, I'm Ben Myers. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, a QHHT practitioner, and a certified Reiki master in Usui Holy Fire Reiki.
Brilliant. And I'm Marcia-Elizabeth-Thompson. I'm a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine and an Eastern wisdom psychologist. I help anyone who's looking to recover from childhood trauma and addiction use the information of their trauma to point their lives in the direction of their destiny.
Okay, I'm so glad we're all here today. I'm so excited for this. I can't even tell you. Our first topic. According to the US Census Bureau from 2019, the American population is 382.2 million. The mainstream opinion sites explode with, are we a country of broken old systems? That include education, religion, politics. Basically, is America off course, needing direction and not following the intended route, lost, confused, adrift?
That's a great question that you pose, Mary. And from the Eastern psychology perspective, everything is exactly as it should be. All things come into being and all things fall away. That is the explanation of Buddhism. The great Roman Empire came into existence and was the most powerful thing at its time. There are great Han dynasties, Chinese dynasties, that came into being and fell away. Things come into being and they fall away. It's not necessarily that we're off course. The US may be exactly where it's meant to be within the grand scheme of creation. Media outlets generally exist to promote fear. So the perception may be that the world is going to hell in a handbasket and things are difficult right now. But this too is the definition of evolution. Evolution goes in both directions because it's a yin-yang universe. We go in the direction of what we call positive and we go in the direction of what we call unwanted. But things are as they are. Ben, I'm curious to hear what you might have to say on the subject.
Such a good response. I should switch from duality is such a thoughtful response. I also believe similarly as you is that we're on the desired path that we're meant to go on as a whole society, that we're all collectively going through an ego death. It's very much a death rebirth, such that we should also consider our thoughts, that rather than seeing basically America broken or the country going to hell, reframing our mindset to say, we're actually healing. We're coming back online. We're disconnected from a pathway that we could see our connections to all people. We could see connections to all our living creatures and plant life. And that many of us are going through ascension symptoms or innate gifts that we once had long ago, except for maybe even gone through trauma, and that we had been stifled from our gifts. So it's such a beautiful thought process that there is a world that's being created that always was, that many of the indigenous or native cultures across the world had this capability to know that they were one with source and one with all, and that we're just seeing it come into existence because there's a difference in trajectory from going from places of what we can see to actually what's really unseen, and all the multi-dimensional spaces, levels, dimensions, etc., going forward. So I very much believe that we're, like you said, right on course.
I like what you both said, because I take something from both of what you said, and I believe that we are actually discovering more about ourselves right now, and because we are seeing so much more of maybe some of the evil, maybe some of the dark stuff, it's actually bringing that to light, which has to happen for everything to find balance. And as we all kind of adjust to like new frequencies coming online, and as Ben said, ascension symptoms, and Marcia mentioned, the balance of yin and yang, which is like the masculine and the feminine. I believe this is actually the most beautiful time that there's ever been on Earth. And there's so many exciting future, like, dream states to me, and we are all kind of evolving, as well as the Earth is evolving at the same time. And, I don't think that we can kind of figure out where to go without the past. And so our pasts are helping us discover where we want to go in our future. Like, I always am about living in this moment. And so to me, the veil's uncovering so much, but at the same time, isn't this world out here created by us here and our thoughts and our perception? So we've really, maybe not us, maybe our ancestors created this world. And so we've had a chance to kind of cumulatively realize, what's going to work and what's not going to work. I see peace on earth coming. So I'm all about, the glass is overflowing. Okay, so let me ask the next question. Final words before death. Traditionally, Buddhist and Hindu cultures write a farewell message. Jesus said, "It is finished." Elvis said, "I'm going to the bathroom to read." Princess Diana, "My God, what happened?" Does the possibility of death inspire consciousness or salvation? Your last words upon this earth, your eternal message to the masses would be?
Sure. For me, it would be to know the universe, and to know thyself is to know that you're love. And to take a continuous inventory internally and externally in the world, to understand of everything's a reflection of you, such that there are often times that we could hold vendettas, we can hold guilt, we can hold fear, we can hold anger, and that's not what we are. And so just the mere knowing that if we do hold those feelings and those emotions within our tissues, our being, and we see it all reflected back to us in our world, to know that it's very probably important to go through some time and space to forgive, to have grace, to have mercy, and to release. And in most ways, that will then show such outcomes that you'll experience love and joy and bliss into one's world. So really very much is that you are love.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate this question. I love when we get to talk about death, because like Ben said, it's a vehicle for consciousness cultivation. And I wrote down 4 things that I wanted to make sure to communicate. And it's that I was reluctant to claim this first one, and yet there was no denying it. There's a story about Gandhi. He was on a train leaving a village after having visited, and a reporter ran up to him and just hurriedly, as the train was pulling out of the station, Gandhiji, do you have a message for us? Do you have a message for me to take back to the people?" And he grabbed a piece of paper and wrote down very quickly, handed it to the reporter, and it said, "My life is my message." And once I realized that that's actually the case for all of us, for Gandhi, it was much more intentional. But that's the case for all of us. Our life is our message. And if there's a message we are to leave or we intend to leave, it's the life that we're living now. So that was number one. The second is that death is a portal. The illusion of death is an illusion. Death is a passageway of travel, transition from one dimension, from what we call reality, to another. The third thing I wanted to communicate is that you are eternal. We are eternal beings, which makes death an illusion. It is a point of transition. And that fear itself is an illusion. And the greatest fear each and any of us has, as Ben referenced, I think in answering the previous question, is the ego death. The only thing that dies is the idea of who each of us is. The final thing I wanted to share is that more will be revealed, always. Thank you.
Such a beautiful response.
Yeah, it is.
No, I can hear it again.
Pass. No, I'm kidding. You know, it's funny because when I kind of toyed around with different topics and everything, I think my mindset was different, and I haven't dwelled on this or even really looked at this before just now. And so I think my response has changed. And so I've definitely evolved. And I think if I knew I was about to pass, where am I passing to? Well, I've had 2 very clear near-death experiences. So I already saw the light and I already saw where I'm going, and I'm not scared. However, while I'm here in this physical reality, I have so much that I want to experience. So I'm not really coming from a place like I would be scared or sad or even fearful. I would basically say I'm ready, because I know when I do pass, it's going to be simply I'm ready. And I know that it's I say this is, we're basically becoming a civilization that's going to excel at heaven on earth. It's going to be all peace and love here. It's going to be heaven on earth. When I pass, I believe it is to another reality, through I will ascend to another perception of what I am, which is probably just my spirit. So I don't know, I'm not looking forward to it, but it would definitely be something that would be pretty exciting. And there is a chance that any of those that have passed or were ascending, they're going to come back into this physical reality.
That's such a very great thought process of how we're ascending. And even just to think about the process of death. Most recently, I had a patient of mine. She's wanting to go into medical school, and she's doing volunteer hours, and she happens to be a hospice volunteer. And what's very interesting, because already being categorized in the hospice requires that you're terminally ill within a specific time period. And I start to wonder about our, call it rituals, or even our closing ceremony in that timeline before we go through the portal, as Dr. Marcia had mentioned. And it's that for the most part, not only is this person playing a pivotal role, because you can help them, you can help these patients, these people go through basically life reviews, life inventories, to say, is there anything that you'd like to share? Are there experiences that you wish to pass on? If there's anything that you would do again, would you take a different fork in the road? just because at that point in time, it might be releasing within sort of like a quantum entanglement. There might be one thing where I would do this. And so even in another multiverse, a parallel universe, they then might then suggest that they would have taken another route. But just very much to remember that there are some factions of people that don't believe that life after death exists. And if we had a re-education such that maybe we indulge in, plant medicines, or maybe we indulge in a chant and we connect to music, that we could even potentially see said light, that you could even see yourself expand past and beyond, or we don't throw away and discount near-death experiences, as many of those experiences corroborate over time and space.
Here.
Yeah.
I think one of the greatest gifts of the last couple of years, well, the greatest gift of the lockdown in 2020 was it's placing us all in the same position of having to face our death. That was one of the most beautiful things. In speaking to the first question you posed for us today, it was the US headed in the wrong direction, and Ben's response that this is actually a time of ascension and awakening. And the Chinese word for crisis contains within it the character for opportunity. So always things are intertransforming. And with having to collectively face our own death, there was this moment when we really were all one. And while the one in which we were was a foundation of fear, there was also the foundation of clarity and an opportunity to completely re-envision the lives that we were living. It's the primary reason, it was the catalyst for me being where I am now. I live in Mexico. And there was a moment during the lockdown, this is, it's a Thich Nhat Hanh, the recently passed Vietnamese Buddhist monk, says that in order for any lotus flower, he's not the only one who says this, but I was just listening to a talk of his, in order for any lotus flower to develop, you need mud. Within the beauty of the lotus is the muck of the mud. And within the muck of the lockdown, my business was shut down at the time. I had a moment of clarity. It's like, I want to work from home. And then all of these other visions started coming through. The muck for me was business being shut down. I started experiencing envy of people who were working from home. It's like, I want to work from home too. It's like, oh, I want to work from home. And from there, I remembered I wanted to move to Mexico a long time ago. So now I live in Mexico. And it's what I call the backhanded blessings of the lockdown. But in terms of facing our death, we were all in that moment together. And some of us were inspired to completely change the course of our lives. Some of us were driven deeper into fear, but what happens, what arises. But facing of death is actually one of the most beneficial things to our incarnation because of the clarity that it requires, because of the consciousness that it cultivates.
What you're bringing up, the lockdown, and for me, it definitely shifted everything around because everything had to be quiet and there wasn't all this strain on, rushing around. It wasn't the same kind of hectic world that we were living in, at least where I am in New York. And so it definitely gave me, I tend to be someone that kind of goes off into my own world anyway. But it gave a lot of people a chance to kind of re-examine what they were doing. And it definitely, without us realizing it, it kind of uplifted everything. Like if water hits a wooden floor and the parquet lifts up, it seems like a lot of people's energies kind of lifted up, and it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. And, for me, I believe that it actually allowed me it was giving me permission, because out in the world, it just doesn't seem like it's okay to stop. it gave me permission to kind of reinvent myself in different ways. And it sounds like that happened to you as well, Dr. Marcia. And, you know, I'm just going to add on to this that I know it's not related, but it makes me think of when we go into a meditative state, because I'm right now spending a lot of time speaking about our intuitive clair senses. And when we quiet ourselves down and we tune into all of our senses, we allow everything to come forward. That's maybe a memory or something that reminds us from our past that we wanted to do. So, just wanted to add that.
Well said.
Okay, so fashion, health, and wellness magazines list stretching for stress release. Please share your tips for stress and growing older.
Ben?
Sure. Sure, I'll go. I'd say to realize, one, that age is just a number. It's the greatest myth of all time. Yes, we might die, but it doesn't mean that we need to age. The greatest teaching I think that I've heard is just to experience life like a child, and such that it's important to remember to play. It's important to remember that laughter is infectious. To being a goofball, your authentic self, is equally infectious, and that some of those markers were sort of extracted from us, which then may have made some of us grow up too early. I could probably speak for me. Some of us were put in positions of fight or flight to be adults before we could even just be kids. And so one of the things is just to remember to engage in practices that make you a child again, to play games, to just move intentionally, but even super consciously in yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, to engage in outlets such as art, writing, drawing, singing, dancing. And why? If your foot wants to move left, let it move left. Nobody says it needs to move right. If you want to try to rap just on the spot and just do anything, go for it. You know, nobody's to realize that in some ways, what impacts us with aging is that you're your greatest judge. Truthfully, nobody cares as much as you do. So if you want to do some of those things, you just do it like your heart's burning on fire.
Here. Here. Let your heart.
All right, Dr. Marcia, it's your turn.
My turn. Okay, I'm up. I just want to say I'm so enjoying this conversation. It's just the most delightful people. I'm so thankful for you. Thank you.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you. I love you too.
Thank you.
First and foremost, always follow your breath awareness and breath cultivation. Because breath awareness allows each of us to understand the content of the mind and how the mind is guiding and directing our lives. I was thinking a lot about dementia and Alzheimer's in this question, and how anger is one of the features that presents itself the most, at least psychologically and emotionally, in the decline of the aging process, and how when we have the opportunity to cleanse ourselves regularly of anger, because it's one of the emotions with which we have been endowed. It's supposed to be here. It has its place. And yet we have not made enough of a place for it in our culture and our relating to one another, and in the way we raise one another and the way we raise children. And this is topical for me right now. I actually hadn't intended to talk on this, but I'm working with someone right now who is going through a grieving process, and there's a lot of anger coming up for him that's surprising for him. And He's a big, strong man, and he's like, there's no place for my anger. I feel he has these conflicting emotions around it. So we're working with Tai Chi and Qigong to help move the anger out of his system in a way that's really satisfying. It feels really good. He feels refreshed, like there's space in his body afterwards. It's like, yeah, this is the movement medicine. Ben was talking about moving. Keep things moving. Keep the chi moving, keep the blood moving, keep the fluids moving, and you'll keep your emotions moving. And there are all of these many things that we can do. And first and foremost, follow your breath, because that always gives us the indication of what our next right action for self is. That's also the thing that keeps us present and what we call in the moment, but that level of conscious clarity is the thing that allows us to let go of or allow to pass through us the things that can cling, the things that can attach themselves and start to feed off us, or the things that we feed into that can create what we call aging. And also to remember that the stuff that we have termed aging, oh, it's because I'm this many years old, or, this was what happens when you get old. It's no. This is what happens when we allow our minds to run the show. This is what happens when we don't take care of our bodies, or we don't drink enough water, or we don't take care of ourselves. We're not mindful of our relationship with self first and how that plays out in relationships to others. And lastly, I think after following your breath, I think the most important thing for me and in the work that I do with people is to remind each of us to be gentle with ourselves, no matter what. Be gentle with yourself, no matter what, even in the midst of an anger storm. Find that space of gentleness, because that's where the voice of eternity speaks to us. And with that ability to continually soften back into self, that's when we don't dry out and die out in the ways that we're always seemingly fighting against. That's what I have to contribute to that one.
I believe that the more we tune into ourselves and we have self-love and acceptance, the less obstacles, the less anger, the less frustration, the less difficulty we're going to have, because it's like we can only control this. We can't control anything out here. I believe, like for me, staying younger is about loving myself, accepting myself, knowing that I'm worthy. Watch out for self-criticism and criticism of me from others. Where is it coming from? It's about, I think, spending time in nature. It's about keep moving, have some place that I have to go. So when I wake up, my intention, my commitment to do my best is going to be related to where am I going? Every day I want to have a plan of where I'm going. It doesn't mean I'm physically going there, but in my mind I'm going there. I have a plan of a beautiful place, a beautiful destiny. And so that's what keeps me younger, or that's what I believe. And of course, it's about also physically keeping moving, physically spending time, whether it's exercise or walking, and, definitely water and sunshine. For me, I know it's really, really healthy for me to spend at least 5 to 30 minutes a day outside. And we can't always get the sun. However, those sunny days, I spend 30 minutes because I feel as though that will keep me younger. And, it's also about taking care of my emotions with others and my communication with others. And I believe that, out in the physical world, when I'm communicating, I have to be sure that I'm on the same page as the person, because little frequencies, little vibrations, if you miss something with someone, whether you realize it or not, they can be sending you some kind of zap. And I just believe that we have to really have patience and consider everyone else's feelings and be careful with how we communicate.
That's a really great point. Even as you were saying, Mary, when you go outside into nature and you just take it all in, we're given the gift of hearing different frequencies. I might step out and I might hear crickets or frogs. You hear their notes, you hear the frequencies. And even in the law of one states that we're a sound vibratory complex. We're an endless song. And so we can tune in to each other's tune. We can listen to what is it that our biological and our heart coherent system is playing. And many times, even within aging, we're out of alignment. Our alignment is no longer, what we're displaying is moving in an opposite direction, or maybe even a different key than what we inwardly feel. And so just as there's a very large importance that we own what chords that we're playing, what song that we're emitting, and to hear each other's song, to say, and many times I know just even in receiving correspondence is I very much value, you are heard. I hear you. I mean, so many of us are not heard. We might even feel like we're muted.
Yeah.
You are heard.
Love it every time.
We're all heard. We're listening to each other. Well, we are listening to each other. And it's also about, I think, too, like being on the same frequency, so, like attracts like, and you have to take that into account as well, and sometimes it's about, wow, that's a lot going on out where I live. It's about really tuning in and connecting, making contact with the other person. And sometimes we're hurrying about, so we might not listen as well as we might other times. And then we kind of later on realize that. But I think it's about tuning in, and like you just said, tuning into nature as well as tuning into other beings of light.
And tuning into yourself, beginning with self. This whole concept. I'm still surprised that so many of us struggle with self-care. We in society think of how we are cultivated and how we are trained as little ones growing up. It's how many of us struggle with self-care being misinterpreted as selfishness. And I'm making a mission, making a point of encouraging the people with whom I work, and myself included, to be self-oriented. That's the new word that I am putting on things. Is selfishness and self-centeredness on the light side of the spectrum. It's still self-care, self-centeredness, selfishness. They can all be centered around the same action. It's the mind that you bring to it. So I've been using the term self-oriented lately. Like, orient to yourself first. You are the center of your universe. You are the hub of your wheel. And then everything else follows from that. Yeah, tune in.
Okay. So with the evolution of life on Gaia, New Earth, humans spend an average of 3 to 6 hours daily on their phones, 2 to 5 hours watching television or viewing streaming every day, and half the country has sex once a week, but celibacy is common. Fill in the blank. I'm into meaningless blank.
So I'm into meaningless eating. It's one of the interesting things that I've learned about myself is that, just the want to snack, and to know that it's interesting to tune into those cravings, because, you might suggest, consciously, like, this is what I want. but I know that there's more things from an internal, both like biologics and also like psychologically, that there's got to be something that is the source of my wanting the meaningless food. So I know that this is very much in Chinese medicine and other forms, like there's a lot of value and insight there. So if I can, I just want to kind of yield my time to Dr. Marcia.
I love it.
Oh, you're about to be so disappointed.
No,
It's not an easy question.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
It's not.
You're hilarious, Ben. I was walking around with this one, and it was a good question because I couldn't come up with anything at first. I've gotten, and I'm happy to be in this place. I've gotten to this place where, because of the things that are targets for me, the things I'm looking to cultivate, pretty much every moment of my day is programmed or dedicated to something. And there isn't a lot of meaningless, like I've gotten to the place where I really appreciate that everything has meaning. Everything has meaning. And to balance and soften that, it's like, well, what do you do? That's just like, how do you faff off? Like, when do you just do nothing? When do you just do nothing? And it's meaningless time, I suppose, then is meaningless time, where it's just scrolling through TikTok videos. And I'll set a timer now. It's like, all right, I'm just going to take a break and let my mind not think about anything super meaningful for like 5 minutes or 7 minutes, and just meaningless time.
It's a difficult response because, we are basically been programmed that everything should have a meaning and that we shouldn't waste any time. And so we don't want it. It's not something that you like run around admitting. In fact, you probably eliminate anything that isn't meaningful, because then you're wasting your time. So for me to fall into this, I too will wake up and scroll, but that's not what I'm going to respond with. I'm going to say that every day, and it is meaningless to me, except that I feel I'm getting something, maybe a little bit out of it. I have to go down to the boardwalk and like I lay on this bench for 30 minutes or it's 10 minutes, and it is meaningless, but it's like something I have to do, because if I don't, then I don't feel like I even take a moment without thinking or doing or going or being, where I'm actually trying to be productive. So it's like I force myself to do this one thing, which is, it's meaningless because I'm not, and it sounds kind of silly, like I just lay there and sometimes the sun is there, sometimes it's not. If it's raining, it's raining, but I just do this one thing that I say I'm into meaningless, I guess, bench laying. That's what I do. Lay on the bench. That's what I do.
You just brought up something really critical, and it's what I encounter and what I work with when it comes up in a session. It's being able to sit comfortably and solidly in the experience of ourselves, period. Because you were talking about lying on a bench, and you're like, well, maybe it's silly. And whatever is meaningful, and that's the thing too, it's about the mind that we bring to things, because everything does have meaning in some way, shape, or form. And we have been indoctrinated into this belief that unless we are cramming as much as we can into every moment of every day, then we are not as valid as the next person, which frankly, I think may have something to do with background, backdoor programming of each of us to work as much and as hard as we can in order to fuel a capitalist system that generates
Mm-hmm.
funds and well-being for larger institutions and powers greater than my individual self. I think there's a lot of psychological manipulation in this concept of meaning and what we do at the time of our lives and the ways in which we come to unconsciously feel the need to validate our existence. The fact that each of us is here is meaning enough. There is no need to validate your existence. You are, period. That is the intention of the universe. That is the expression of source. What you do with your time here is essentially irrelevant because this is all an illusion anyway. None of this is happening right now anyway. So it all has meaning and it's all completely meaningless at the same time. So why on the bench?
Okay, I'm going to keep planning on doing it after this. Because that's what I have to do. I have to go lay on the bench. Okay, I appreciate you responding with that. And you always say to me when I say I'm not, I have to do this. And you said, Mary, Dr. Marcia says to me, Mary.
You like that?
No, I don't. No, you don't say it like that. But to me, I'm getting it like that. Mary, you're good enough as is. So that's a text. Sometimes you text that to me or you respond. You don't do it like, oh, but I mean, it's more like when I do that, it's like, I take note of what you're saying because whatever you say is so valuable. So I'm like, what is she saying? And you're like, Mary, you're good enough as is. You don't have to do anything else. You're good, which is, I'd like to send that message to everyone right now before we move on, because I don't know how this is going to, if this is going to cut off, but I want to say, so what I'd like to say is I'd like thank you to both of you for joining us. And, this, whoever's viewing this, I hope you enjoy this. And I'm asking both of you if you would like to share demonstrate something that you do and, in your work, if you would like to, either of you.
Sure. So I'd love to share with everybody basically doing sound therapy or even being given music codes through light language activation, kind of in a guise of guided meditation, if y'all want to join me. So I'll just ask you both to close your eyes, and just see yourself very much ground within your body. Be mindful of the breath, to take just a conscious breath, all the way in. Elongate the breath. And just breathe out through your mouth. And as you're there, wish you all just to go through and just travel up a spiral golden staircase. There's a door at the top, it's emerald. I'm just going to ask you both just to walk through. And as you go there, you'll be in the 5D world. Kusa ara 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 ayatara. Impankaraya. And just to feel the vibration. Anaya noeya. Ayamaria mana haya no mara haya. Ayamano sora kayamo no maraha. Momokura kaya masarya no makaya mamahe. Mamahaya mana haya ya ya awe. Yanahawe, Yahweh. And just to take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, and just with gratitude to take in all that's around you, the colors, the vibrations, all the senses, the connections of all that's around you. Kusa arya mokura kaya ara ara. So just as you're there with joy, just walk back through that door, come down the spiral staircase, and softly, gently back into your body. And just take just a few deep breaths to come back in your body. And just when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Blessed be.
Thank you. I can't wait to share that with you guys, what happened, but not right now. It was lovely.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'd like to offer a technique for helping to restore your life essence. From the Western medicine side of things, it's a treatment for adrenal fatigue. On the non-Western original medicine side of things, it's a restoration of life essence. The restoration of the Ming Men fire, the original life gate fire, to help support you as you move through life. It's also a stretch for the vagus nerve, which helps return us to parasympathetic functioning, takes us out of fight, flight, freeze, response. And if you have a chronically tight mid-back that doesn't respond to stretching, that's usually a sign of adrenal fatigue. So in addition to doing this, you can also consider eliminating caffeine from your system, increasing your water intake, reducing your intake of acidic foods, being gentler with yourself on the chemical level as well. Now I'm going to do this profile because it'll be much easier for you to understand what I'm talking about. And it's a few steps, quick steps, but a few steps. So take one hand and place it at the base of your skull. And the first thing you're going to do is bring your tongue back in your throat. So it looks like this. You're pulling your whole tongue, especially the base of your tongue, back into the base of your throat. And then you're going to lift your tongue up to the roof of your mouth and gently hold your tongue, your whole tongue against the whole roof of your mouth. And you're welcome to close your eyes or not. But with your tongue lightly pressed up against the roof of your mouth, inhale and exhale 9 times. Take your own time as you inhale and exhale, continuing to bring your tongue into the back of your throat and then up into your hand. You're likely to feel a stretch through your mid-back. You're taking the pressure off your adrenal glands and strengthening your vagus nerve. Now, as you do this, you probably have a couple more breaths left. As you do this, if you know where your pubic bone is, let your pubic bone just boop, drop. Just, release and let that go. That's held tension in the psoas and the pelvic floor. That when you start to release your adrenal glands and drop back down into your pelvic floor, you're in your root chakra, so you're restoring your true foundation to yourself in your life. You've probably completed your 9 breaths by now. So release the weight, release the pressure from the base of your skull. Your head hopefully feels lighter on your spine. There's less pressure on your adrenal glands, and now you're back into your root chakra. And hopefully you're breathing more freely as well. So you've reset your nervous system and reset your vagus nerve and brought yourself back to your foundation.
Maybe I'll sleep on that bench after both of these exercises.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out which idea that I should do. And so I think I'm going to go with manifesting. And so let's together manifest. And so there's 3 steps to manifesting. The first step is going to be that we write down on a piece of paper exactly what we want to manifest. Now, if it's a person, you can't manifest a specific person, you can manifest a relationship. So you want to, it can be something, it can be the idea of a relationship or someone, maybe you're looking for a friendship or a thing, someplace you want to go, etc., etc. So first you write it down on a piece of paper. You don't tell anyone. So neither of you are allowed to tell me what this is. So you're going to write down on a piece of paper whatever it is that you want. Okay. And then you're going to put it in your sock drawer. Maybe you're not going to do it right now, but you remember to do this, guys. You're going to put it in your sock drawer. Now, the second step to manifesting is you're going to close your eyes and you're going to visualize in your mind's eye exactly what it is that you want, what you desire, what you wish for, and you're going to see it, and you're going to see it with all your senses. You're going to see it with your smell, your taste, your feelings, your hearing, your touch. You're going to sense it, and it must bring you joy. Whatever it is you're trying to manifest, it must bring you joy. If it's not bringing you joy, you're not going to be able to manifest it. So if it's not bringing you joy and you can't go, oh, that's exciting, and you say, oh, no, I can't do that, you have to figure out why. Why is it that you have this sabotage on yourself? And so you want to go to whatever that is, whoever told you that you couldn't have what it is you want. Maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a friend, maybe it was a relative, maybe it was you. Maybe you laughed at yourself and said, oh, you can't have that. You can have anything you want. So, like I said, all your senses, you're going to visualize in your mind, joy, joy, joy. Now you're going to sense, what does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does it look like? All of your senses. You're going to gather all that information together. That's step 2. Step 3. Step 3 is that you're going to talk about whatever it is you want, like you already have it. Like, for example, I use this yellow car, this shiny yellow car. That's what I want to manifest. So I say my shiny, and I say it out loud. You don't have to say it out loud right here. You can say it when we get off the video, because I know you'll do this exercise, the two of you. And so you want to say, like for me, I say my shiny yellow car, it has black interior. I'm so excited. There's not a lot of room. There's just enough room for me and a passenger and maybe a bag in the back, because it's just me really on the road having fun. And so I speak about it as I already have it. And that's how I'm going to manifest it. And so those are the 3 steps. First, you write it down, you put it in your sock drawer. 2, you're going to visualize it with all your senses. Of course, you're not going to tell anyone anything about this, because then they will ruin your dream and your desire, because they don't understand. No one understands but you what you dream and desire. It's all your perspective. And 3, you're going to talk about it as if you already have it. And that's the 3 steps to manifesting. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Well, I love you both, and I'm glad that we made this here today. And I hope we do this again, and we'll see how this was, how this was for everyone. I feel as though I had a wonderful visit with both of you in person.
Oh, this has been just great. Thank you so much, both of you. Really enriching today.
Same here, likewise. It's so enjoyable.
Thank you so much. Okay, so that's that.
I'm getting
Now,
hang on one second. I'll be right back.
I'm gonna hang. I have to end this right now.